Police have arrested a California man they say was armed with a gun and a knife near Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh's home in suburban Maryland. 26-year-old Nicholas John Roski now faces charges of attempting to murder the Associate Justice. Roski was taken into custody around 2 a.m. this morning and appeared in a Maryland courtroom this afternoon. The FBI is investigating the incident. CBS News congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane joins us now for more. Scott, what do we know about the suspect and what he said his motive might have been?
Hey, Major, local police tell me that Nicholas Roski called 911 on himself just after 1 a.m. in the suburban D.C. neighborhood of Justice Kavanaugh. Not only did he have the gun and the knife, according to an FBI affidavit, but had zip ties and duct tape and pepper spray in a backpack he was carrying. According to the FBI affidavit, he also told officers he purchased the gun with the intention of using it against Kavanaugh and then against himself. They also allude to a possible motive in the FBI in the court documents, saying that he was concerned about the draft opinion the Supreme Court has leaked out, or that has leaked out of the Supreme Court, indicating they're poised to overturn Roe versus Wade, but also that he's concerned and worried that Brett Kavanaugh would rule to loosen gun rights. He was in federal court a short while ago. He'll be back later this month facing this high-level federal charge, Major, attempting to murder a federal judge with a 20-year max sentence if convicted.
Scott, the atmosphere around this really needs some study. There is a general sense that in the last three weeks, the idea of threats around Supreme Court justices have become not only more prevalent, but they've become more visible, either by phone, by email, by text. All of this culminating or sort of intensifying after that leak of the draft majority opinion. How does this incident compare with past threats, and is there a sense in the law enforcement community that this is a really serious situation?
It's clear to law enforcement and to others that this is already an inflamed situation, as is evident by the fact they've erected this 8-foot black metal fence around the Supreme Court. From the outside, it looks like an encampment. They're obviously increasing the security posture. The U.S. Attorney General says he has also asked his department to reinforce the security at the homes of all 9 justices, where there have been some protests outside some of the homes of the justices in recent weeks. They've been peaceful protests, but they've raised alarm. And Congress has been talking about moving on this, Major, with a new sweeping plan that has some bipartisan support to increase funding or increase authorizations to provide more security, not just for the justices, but for their families. And one of the judges who's been advocating for this is Judge Esther Salas. You'll recall her story. She's from New Jersey. Her husband was wounded. Her son was murdered in their home in an attack 2 years ago. There's a growing sense that more can be done to protect judges, to protect justices of the high court in this politically charged, politically toxic moment.
So let me ask you this. A practical question arises. This suspect was arrested about 2 a.m. That suggests that there were eyes on. Is it worth noting, Scott, that there are procedures now essentially around the homes of justices to keep eyes on? Is there a sense that there's regular patrolling going on?
Yeah, the types of things that they would keep confidential, but all indications are that there is a security posture that is enhanced and probably already a baseline security at these homes. I'll underscore something else. This suspect called 911 on himself.
Right.
This wasn't somebody who was found out, discovered, or stopped by law enforcement, local, federal, or otherwise. He turned himself in. We'll see if this expedites passage of legislation to better protect judges, but there's an optics issue here too, Major. If Congress moves swiftly in a matter of hours to pass new protections against gun threats against judges, how does it look for those members of Congress to not move swiftly after a school massacre? That's a hurdle coming down the pike too.
No doubt. And the question of how safe justices are, or federal judges in general, you don't have to be justices of the Supreme Court, goes to a sort of deeper institutional question. How can we have rule of law if the people who are in charge of adjudicating what rule of law is themselves feel threatened? So that raises a pretty practical question and a political one. What is the argument against doing this rapidly on Capitol Hill? I mean, clearly the threat is here. It's intensifying. It's now visible. Is there a counter argument? Well, we don't really need to do that. What is the slowdown in this process?
The natural inertia of Congress, where at this moment, this close to midterms and at this politically divisive moment, it's hard to get them to agree to say the sky is blue. This falls into the category of anything, and anything can be slowed down in Congress at this moment. I think there's going to be a push, a bipartisan push. There probably will be a consensus on this. It always comes down to what vehicle can they attach it to get it through. That's one of the tricky things right now legislatively for Congress. There's not a must-pass thing in the queue that they can attach this legislation to. Same's going to be true for the gun provisions, gun control law. If they try to move that, what do they attach it to give it extra momentum? They'll work through that. That'll take some time. But at this point, a bipartisan consensus seems to be forming that more can and should be done.
With the details and the perspective, as always, Scott MacFarlane, many thanks.